I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, the Lifepreneur podcast. I'm a hyperachiever turned lifepreneur, and after a decade of coaching ambitious leaders, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. This podcast is for the everyday leader ambitious for a rich, out-of-the-box life. This is your weekly nudge and reminder to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. This is the first bonus episode that I've ever done, and it's going to be a little bit different. A lot has been stirring in my heart and mind over the past several months. And I want to take you inside that stirring because I know that when someone I know shares the truth about what's happening in their lives, it often helps me to process what's happening in my own life because we find ourselves in other people's stories. So as I fill you in on what's happening over here, be listening for what's happening over there with you. So going back to the month of July, I had just come off of a 1-year business mastermind intensive, and my brain felt really tired. I found myself dreaming one night at dinner with my husband. We started talking about taking a month-long vacation, and we started to really think about it. And even, what we would do and what that would look like. And then we realized that wasn't exactly possible yet. The next morning, as I was doing my own writing, and I found myself asking, what was this need for a month-long vacation really about? And sure, we couldn't get away for a month right now, but what could I do to honor this need I felt in this longing that I felt in myself? What could I do right here and now to take care of that? And I ended up deciding to declare July as a month of rest. Now, that didn't mean I shut down my business or stopped coaching clients or doing this podcast, but I did strip away everything else that I could that wasn't absolutely necessary to take amazing care of my clients and show up for you with this podcast. And here's what happened. It made a lot of space in my life, and honestly, an uncomfortable amount of space. In this empty space, I found my mind to be like a wild donkey. There was a lot of discomfort and a lot of kind of freaking out of the less doing and more being, and this space. I found that I got uncomfortable and felt bored at times, and I felt empty at times, and more empty than maybe I had ever felt. And I don't mean empty as in like a sad empty, but just like my mind wasn't running and racing with thoughts. It was still and quiet. And I had to look at things that I don't normally look at because the busy keeps me away from it. And I had to ask myself questions like, who am I without my work, my creativity, and my business? And it was super, super interesting. And what I did to fill the space, other than resting, was I did more reading, I did more writing. I spent more time with Quentin and had more space and time to move my body and eat well, and less thinking, more being, which again, I'm not going to lie, was highly uncomfortable, but got easier. We took time to take some day trips and watched TV, which is something I never do, and actually found that I enjoy it. So much happened during this month. I probably need to create a whole episode because it was very, very insightful. This experiment taught me about what was keeping me from being more present and available in my life. And what I discovered out of it was I had time to be more thoughtful and available without the pressure of the clock behind me. Simple things like just responding to a text with more thought and care. During this time, I committed to writing every day, and the writing allowed me to sit with some things, like I said, that were some uncomfortable feelings that I'm usually too busy to acknowledge. I found that my conversations with people were better and richer and more intimate because the clock wasn't ticking in the back of my mind and the to-do list wasn't hollering my name. I was able to do less with more of me, and there was just more space to enjoy life more, which is what I always want. But somehow there's that trap of getting busy and working so hard for that enjoying life at a future date. But when you calm everything, all of a sudden it was right there. Okay, so life update number 2, a new season of life is upon us. Our boys are grown. I said it. Yep, that happened. Tom graduated high school and left for the Navy 2 years ago, and Shane graduated high school this year. He's working full time. He's living large. And while he's still living in our home, he's very independent. I'm not going to lie, this has been a hard adjustment on me. When you're raising your babies, I'm sure many of you know this, you don't really imagine this day. It feels like life together in the nest as a family is like, it's just going to always be that way. And you pour your heart and your mind and your being, and you plan your life, like every nook and cranny of your life, around these little humans for 18 to 20 years, responsible for their well-being, their protection and guidance. And then you have to let go and let them fly away, trusting that you did all you can do to equip them for life on their own. So that's where we are. I've done a lot of praying, a lot of writing, a lot of creating to find myself in this new stage and chapter. And honestly, it's still a work in progress. I'm really, really grateful that Quentin and I have nurtured our marriage along the way, and we really like each other a lot. And because amidst all of this change and sadness and growing up and pulling away that the boys are doing, we're also very excited and actively creating this part of our lives. And that holds a lot of togetherness, a lot of freedom that we haven't been used to. And we're at a point where we want to live more while we still feel great. So in getting ready to share this with you, I discovered something that I hadn't seen, but the month of July and what happened in that month really led me and prepared me to be more present and less wrapped up in the busyness and productivity, so that I could go away and in August to see Tom, our oldest son. He graduated from nuclear power training school, which was his final graduation. And then he came home for a 24-day visit after being gone for 2 years. And this month of July gave me everything I needed to be able to set up my work and business so that I could maintain the work I love while being super present and focused and engaged to soak up all the precious moments that he would be back in our home before setting out for deployment. So he came home. We spent 24 incredible days together. People have asked me, like, what were the highlights? And well, we did a lot of things and spent a lot of time together as a family. Honestly, it's the little tiny ordinary moments that were my favorites. You know, just having him back in his room again down the hall, or having him wake up in the morning and walk out into the kitchen where I could sneak a hug, which reminded me of when they were tiny boys and they'd come out all sleepy-eyed and give me a hug in the morning. It was things like when we'd be walking in the Target parking lot and Tom would wrap his arm around me and we'd just be walking and talking, or sitting around it as a family and him sharing all his experiences in the Navy over the last couple of years. And I could just see him and though he's the same, he's different. He stands taller. He's matured. He's his own person. He's stretching and growing. And Shane's doing the same now that he's out of high school. And those of you who are parents, it's like one of the most awesome things to watch, as a parent. And then there's life update number 3. So a little backstory. I had my first son in 2002. I left corporate America to be a stay-at-home mom. I started to go a little stir crazy when he was about 8 months old. I started writing and journaling to find my own sanity so that I could be a happy mom, because I felt like that was one of the greatest gifts I could give my kids. And I ended up creating my first business in 2007-ish. It was called Sanity Journals, which eventually led me to coaching. And I never went back to corporate. My vision has always been to build a small, remarkable business that has deep impact for individuals and that would allow for a spacious, flexible, and mobile lifestyle. In the early days, this was so I could be the mom I wanted to be and also be connected to my family who didn't live here and so on. The mobile part was a long-term vision, and that long-term vision has arrived. Actually, today, depending on when you were listening to this podcast, we are embarking on our first adventure. So Quentin and I are going to Colorado. It's going to be a working and travel adventure. It's an experiment of this idea I dreamed of so long ago. This, I want you to know, is the power of writing down the dreams in your heart and then aligning your actions, sometimes over long periods of time. And I wanted to share this with you because it truly is how I've created so many things in my life, and one that is coming to fruition as we speak today, as I share with you today. So the last 2 months of unwinding from busyness, having this new perspective on showing up to my work with greater intention and focus and less busy, filling my heart with a lot of time with my boys and together as a family, and everything I practiced during that month of July and August while Tom was home really has prepared me for this next month. So as I share these updates with you, I had the realization of how each of these last months that I went through, they each prepared me for the coming month and the adventure this month. And it's all been about stripping away what isn't absolutely necessary, getting more comfortable with having space in my life, being more available and intimate in the tiny moments with the people in my life. And now this month is about amplifying that living and adventure and freedom in this new chapter that Quentin and I find ourselves in. Okay, those are the updates. Stay tuned. If you're watching this in September, please get connected on Instagram as I'm going to share this journey. So there you have it, a snapshot of the past few months, a lot of grappling, a lot of learning, and now on to some adventure. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a Differently listener. I see the podcast growing. Thank you for sharing it with people you love and care about who could benefit. Now, what did my stories stir in you? Is there something that you're feeling nudged to pay attention to in your life, or an adventure that's awaiting you? What if you listened sooner and act faster? If you aren't sure, grab a pen and paper, take a few minutes today to write about what you heard as you were listening to this episode, and I bet you will find just the thing that wants your attention. And if you're a fan of this podcast, may I ask you to leave a 5-star review with a few notes as to why you like the podcast. This will help others find it. It would mean the world to me. I hope you have an incredible day and week, and I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, Hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please share it and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.